This might be an obvious one, but why the UK? Obviously, you are a UK developer, and you said that you're made up of mostly British people, but why the UK? There aren't that many kind of racing games set in the UK.
There aren't many games set in the UK. We were actually doing a bit of a pop quiz the other day, just trying to think of games which had been set in Britain, and we didn't come up with all that many. And you have to start going like way back to like The Getaway and stuff like that, you know. Why Britain? So I mean, you say, hey, you're a British studio, but I think that actually counted against Britain when we first started, you know, this process and thinking about where we would set this game, because I don't know if you feel this as well, but you almost kind of have an unconscious bias against the place you're from. You know, you forget what's on your doorstep. You forget because you're just so used to it. You get complacent. So when the team whose job it was to go away and think about all the places that Forza Horizon 4 could be set came back, and you know, one of their pitches was Britain. I started from a place of I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think anybody really wants that, and it's to the team's credit that they pitched passionately. They argued strongly for Britain, and really tried to remind us, you know, how beautiful Britain is, how varied and diverse it is, the incredible sense of history that you get from Britain. It's kind of unlike anywhere else. And they did a brilliant job of almost like sort of changing minds and reminding us of what a really lovely, beautiful, interesting country we live in. I don't think that would have been enough in and of itself. It was really the work that another team in the studio did around about exactly the same time. It was a sort of tech R&D project that they spun up to try and think about how we could do dynamic seasons in an open world. Again, something that's not really been done, something we've looked at doing before, but always just kind of backed away because it's so much work. There's so much risk involved. This time they came back and said, okay, I think we're mature enough as a studio, mature enough technically and in terms of our tools and our pipelines, we could do this. And then when you take those two things together, Britain and like seasons, you know, and you'll know Britain's a very seasonal country. We have 4 very distinct seasons, which isn't, you know, something you could say of Australia, for example. Seasons wouldn't have made a whole lot of sense in Australia. But when you take Britain and seasons together, we almost felt like we couldn't do Britain without doing seasons, and if we were going to do seasons, Britain's the perfect place to showcase it, and that's how we've landed here.
What else was on the list? You said you had a list of kind of locations.
So so we start with a long list, and we narrow it down to a short list, and you know, then to 5 and 3 and ultimately 1. And I try to avoid telling people the other locations that, you know, that came close.
Just in case for future games.
Well, yeah, because then people obviously hear that and they're like, oh, well, the next one will be set here, and then expectation, because, you know, is what it is. So the thing about Horizon games is there's not many places they couldn't be set. I think, you know, as long as it's, you know, beautiful, you know, great scenery, great vistas, and great driving roads, the Horizon Festival could set up there. So I feel like, you know, we have many options open to us. Someone said to me recently, are you worried you're running out of places? And I kind of said, I don't think so. I think that, you know, there's quite a lot of places left that we could
The world's kind of a big place, right?
Right, yeah.
Still got South America, Asia.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's such a portable, flexible concept, like, you know, the Horizon Festival, that I don't think we're running out anytime soon.
So is the season thing going to be a staple? Because like you just said, in the UK, like we have 4 very different seasons, but in like most places around the world, they're not as kind of varied as they are in the UK.
And I think that's true. And I honestly don't think we think in that sort of way, you know, when we're considering what's right for an individual game. We very much think about the game we're making, what is the best experience, what are the most interesting ideas that we can bring to our players in the context of this one project, and honestly we'll worry about whatever it is we do next when we're doing it.
So I've asked why the UK. I'm now going to ask why it's the Scotland and the North. Did you not think about like Blackpool, Skegness, Bognor, maybe racing around the streets of Birmingham, you know, bus station? Like, why the North? What was so kind of alluring?
Here's a thing I've noticed. I kind of noticed it in the abstract when we did Australia, like seeing the reception that Australian people had to the idea from first hearing about it through then doing that same thing that you just did there, like, oh, are you going to include the rubbish things about Australia? And then they come out of that, and then, you know, certainly the reception we had from Australians when we launched the game and ever since has been like, kind of what you'd expect, in the sense that they're like, I'm a proud Australian and I'm delighted that there's a game set in my country, and I feel like the game has done my country proud. I've seen exactly the same process with Brits who were like, yes, brilliant, it's Britain. And then, oh, are you going to have Skegness or Bognor Regis, or are you going to have, you know, like chavs in supermarket car parks and stuff like that? The answer, obviously, to pretty much all of those questions is no, duh, obviously. We're totally focusing on the best, the most beautiful, the most interesting places in the UK. And I think, generally speaking, we're starting to see, particularly as we're letting people have hands-on with the game, you know, in a real sense, people are really enjoying the fact that there's a game set in the UK. You know, as we talked about, there aren't many of those, but also which really celebrates this country and paints it in just the best possible light. And it's not just Scotland in the north. We have the Cotswolds in there as well, which is like as quintessentially English as a location can be. There's a real variety within the world. There's real diversity in the environments as well, which is, again, is maybe a preconception I had, which turned out to be wrong. You can get incredible variety across this British map that we've made.
What's the most British thing in the game?
The most British thing in the game? That's a good question. We certainly try and play up to Britishness wherever we can. You know, I think we always try to treat location as more than just a backdrop, you know, more than just, you know, the scenery. There's some great Britishness infused throughout our car list. The barn finds feature, which we've had since the first game, is a brilliant conduit to allow us to have unusual, maybe unlikely cars. You know, the sort of cars that probably wouldn't make it into your traditional racing game, but because you can find a car in a barn, it's all dilapidated, you restore it through this feature. It allows us to include some really, you know, sort of classic British cars. And I think being able to key into Britain's really rich automotive history has been a fun thing that we've done, and is kind of, you know, paying our respects, I guess, to Britain in that regard.
Would you say it's a bit of a love letter to Britain?
It totally is. I wish I was saying that more, because it's a great way of expressing how I think we feel about it as a studio. Like 100% of our staff live in Britain. Like, you know, it's a fairly international team. We have, you know, with Europeans and lots of people from further afield, but the majority definitely are probably Brits and are therefore more passionate about the location than they have been maybe in the past. And I do think personally and as a team we've kind of rediscovered Britain through this process, to the point that we've almost kind of fallen in love with the country again through making it. I think it's been a really special process, like unique to this game. We'll never have this experience again. But I can't wait for particularly our British fans to get their hands on it as well, and you'll hopefully have a bit of that experience as well.
So seasons, obviously the big thing. How do they work? So you're talking in your little brief intro, you said that the prologue's about 6-7 hours, yep, and that takes you through all 4 seasons. Mm-hmm. And then after that you're in the open world, and each season lasts a week?
That's right, yes. So as soon as you exit the prologue, you're basically in the shared world, which we call Horizon Life. And everybody goes to live at Horizon now, because it's not just, you know, the Groundhog Day of one endlessly repeating summer's day. Now time passes, which you can see with the seasons. And everything is synchronized for all players, you know, so everyone is seeing the same time of day, the same weather conditions. If the sun is setting, everyone's seeing that sunset, which is kind of a beautiful thing, I think. And everybody sees the season change at the same time, which, as you say, is on a weekly basis. And what that means is that you will have a week of playing, you know, and obviously everybody plays games in different ways, you know, different session lengths, different number of, you know, play sessions a week, but everyone gets to play and explore a season for that week and anticipate what's coming the next time the season changes. You know, when summer turns to autumn, autumn turns to winter. That obviously means, as you'll have seen this morning, a complete visual change to the world. You know, the colour palette, the foliage changes with every season. But we're also using seasons and this weekly sort of calendar as a way of introducing new content, new gameplay into the game on a really regular basis. So as you anticipate the next season, you're also kind of anticipating the new gameplay, the new events and championships that we'll introduce with it.
Do you think people will stay away from certain seasons? Like, oh, it's winter next week, I'll have a week off, I can go on holiday and then come back for spring.
Well, I don't want anyone to not go on holiday. People, you know, they should plan their vacations, you know, independently. Seriously though, no, and that's been very sort of front and centre for us to make sure that as we develop each individual season, we're making sure that it's the best that season can be, it's the best gameplay experience that season can offer, and that you can still enjoy the range of activities and gameplay experiences that Horizon games typically offer. Like, there's no season which basically closes off opportunities to you. So no, I want everybody to experience all the seasons and see what they can offer, but I don't think anyone's going to be like, well, I can't play next week because I don't like autumn, because I think when people experience the seasons, they'll realise that that's not actually a real problem.
You've been with Horizon since day one. What's your ultimate goal for the franchise?
That's an excellent question. We do take it from game to game. We are thrilled and I think proud of the trajectory we've taken the Horizon games on. You know, I remember speaking to you way back when we were first talking about the first Forza Horizon back like 2012.
Yeah, in that little underground place in London.
That's right, yeah. And those conversations were very different from the ones we have today, right? You know, back then we were doing a lot of explaining. Like, everyone knew what Forza was, but what was this new thing? What were we trying to achieve? It's a real point of pride, I think, for everyone in the studio that with each game we've got bigger and better and perhaps more recognised. 3, it's no secret, really broke out in a way that you know, we couldn't have anticipated or maybe even hoped for. And we now find ourselves in this really luxurious place, you know, through a lot of hard work over the years, but we don't take it for granted that we're now in a place where people know what Horizon is and anticipate what we're going to do next and look forward to these games, and the conversations that we have are very different from where they were back then, all of which is kind of a long way of saying we want to continue reaching more people with this game, which we consider now, personally I think of it as not a racing game but an open world game. I don't think about it as a game just for car guys or, you know, car people. It's a game about exploration and community and fun in an open world, and we want to continue broadening that so that more people can come and enjoy the game that we're making. So Forza Horizon 4 is out on October the 2nd on Xbox One, Xbox One X and Windows 10 PCs. It is in Xbox Game Pass on exactly the same day, which I think is a really exciting thing. And if you are an Ultimate Edition customer, you will be able to play 4 days early on, I think, the 28th of September.